I'm a performance advisor with Inspiring Scotland, and alongside my colleague Debbie Zyma, I work on the Intandem mentoring programme. Intandem is a national community-based mentoring programme for young people and children aged 8 to 14 years old who are looked after. We work with a portfolio of 12 partner charities to deliver Intandem and develop the programme across 19 local authorities. Back in March, we had 140 young people meeting every week with their volunteer mentor. And obviously with the new restrictions, we had to adapt very quickly to the changes. So I really just today want to run through what we did to adapt, what we've learned in the process and what we're still learning. So how did our Intandem charities react to lockdown? Well, the first thing that happened was conversations. Every coordinator contacted each child and each parent and each volunteer in Intandem to ask how they were. These conversations were to identify not just their mentoring needs going forward and how we could sustain that relationship, but also understanding what their other needs were around access to food, access to mobile phone data or technology, understanding if they needed help and advice of other services, and our charities, all being local based organisations, were able to very quickly either respond to that need as an organisation or identify other local partners that could help with meeting that need. So people like Fairshare, who are involved in delivering hot meals, and advice centres. So we initially used our budget for activities to meet those immediate needs of toilet rolls or baby milk or food, whatever it was. But then once the emergency COVID response funding became available, we used that to make sure that families had what was needed. So this early conversation and understanding needs continued with a tailored contact plan for every match. So whether that was using video conferencing, we gained access to the NHS Anywhere Now service for video conferencing, but we also used Zoom and Teams, or whether that was a telephone call or even a text message or a letter. All of those were used as ways of keeping in touch with families throughout and with young people to ensure that their isolation was not increased by the situation. Instead of doing face-to-face activities, our coordinators displayed an incredible amount of creativity, coming up with all sorts of activity ideas, such as baking or making bird tables, online colouring, but also sharing darts games, or where possible, if they were able to meet outside, then socially distanced dog walks, frisbee throwing, photography sessions, scavenger hunts, you name it, our coordinators came up with it, but so did our volunteers. They also had some great suggestions, and most importantly, young people themselves came up with some great ideas, painting nails and sharing their playlists with volunteers, and sharing their knowledge of technology quite often with the adults. So it really was a case of a can-do attitude throughout to make sure that mentoring did not stop, did not pause, but kept going all the way through when people needed it. So reflecting on our lessons and what we've actually learned, we're still learning, and we certainly haven't got it all sewn up, but our relationships have been what have got us through this period. The relationships within the portfolio between the 12 charities and Inspiring Scotland, but most importantly between the coordinators and the young people and the volunteers and the families. Those relationships have deepened, the level of trust has strengthened, and it's meant that our matches have on the whole managed to be sustained throughout the period. Being local-based organisations, their reputation preceded our charity partners, so they were trusted by families, and when they needed help, they were able to come and ask for it from our organisations. It widened to more than mentoring, but it also meant that mentoring did continue with goal setting around improving routine or sleep patterns or eating habits or getting outside and getting exercise, to developing coping strategies for dealing with family conflict. So mentoring between volunteers and young people still continued throughout this period, and people embraced the online. There was a lot of conversations held through Zoom and Teams, but also good old telephone conversations too. I think the online offered us more opportunity to increase to more frequent support rather than an hour or two a week in person. Often it was a shorter online call, but more frequently, and social work at times asked us to increase the frequency of support, and we were at times able to respond to that with either the volunteer increasing their frequency of support or coordinators stepping in to help. It didn't work for everyone, this online approach. We certainly found that a blended approach of some face-to-face outdoors, some in-person meetings, but outdoors complemented the online sessions. And for those young people with additional support needs, they found it the hardest to engage with the video. So turning off the camera, resorting to text messaging or telephone calls was probably easier with for those young people to adapt to. So looking to the future and what we've taken from this experience, we're still learning, we're still trying new things to meet the ever-evolving new challenges. One thing is the importance of the outdoors. So we've all realised how important a connection with nature is, and realising that our mentoring model looks more like an online and an outdoor combination rather than indoor activities going forward is certainly our plan for 2021. We expect to have challenges around it being December in Scotland and trying to get people outside, but we've done some training around trying to change hearts and minds around getting outside in poorer weather in the dark, but also around the practical barriers that some families can face, such as outdoor clothing, the right footwear, understanding whether the area is safe and where they're going, providing head torches. So all of those things we've been looking at as a portfolio to see how we can overcome any barriers to outside work throughout the winter. So this blended model of outdoors rather, and online will continue, not just for mentors and mentees, but also for training our volunteers, for recruiting volunteers, for our evaluation, for our portfolio meeting as a group. We're all meeting online. We recently had a portfolio week of events rather than a normal full day together. So again, we're learning from that and trying to make sure that nobody's suffering from too much Zoom overload. I mentioned before the family involvement and the fact that the support had widened from straightforward mentoring to a deeper family support, and we hope that that opportunity will continue, and we'd like to build that into our work next year to make sure that families still feel able to connect with Intandem for more than mentoring. And throughout all of this, the most important thing we've learned is the value of our coordinators. And I really would like to thank them for the incredible support that they've shown to their colleagues and to families and young people and volunteers throughout this time. They've been the glue that have held the service together, and they have really stepped in and stepped up when needed. They've continued throughout. We've had an incredible level of commitment, and they've had to provide support for young people when mentors were having their own struggles. So volunteers have found this a difficult time too. They've provided support to volunteers, and they have provided mentoring to young people. So we're very appreciative of the expertise and the skills that they've developed, quickly adapting their training for online and delivering that, gaining in confidence in terms of doing live training, using Zoom, but also with the ability to use the materials that we've developed as a group, either to deliver their training or for online learning. So in conclusion, I guess it's that in-person mentoring will continue. It's what we do, but that outdoor in-person sessions can work really well, and that online can help you reach more young people in potentially more rural or more challenging circumstances where young people can't get out to meet a mentor, or where a volunteer isn't available. Then the online world can provide much more support than would otherwise be possible. So we're optimistic for the future. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Miller, and I'm the coordinator of a new mentoring programme called Trad Mentor, which supports traditional musicians in Scotland. Just over a year ago, we had the induction of our first mentees and mentors into the programme, and of course we expected to be meeting in person, face to face. Today I'd like to share with you how we've adjusted to the changing circumstances. First, a little music to set the scene.
I think myself, kind of just starting out in my career, it's definitely something when I was at university I could have done with a little bit, just more support, somebody to bounce ideas off of and just to really talk with. So I think having folk trained up in this way to go out into the sector, into the kind of traditional music world, and to give that support and hopefully provide just an ear, you know, for folk to talk to, I think that would be, yeah, a great thing for the industry and help a lot of people.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about the programme. Many people working as traditional musicians in Scotland rely on a mixture of performing, teaching, composing, arranging and other jobs to make a living. And outside of institutions, there's very little in the way of structured mentoring support, few places to discuss things in confidence. So the project is managed by myself under the auspices of the Traditional Music Forum. And last year we had 6 mentors and 10 mentees. A lot to do in the first year, including training for mentors and myself as coordinator, recruiting mentors and mentees, matching partners and supporting partnerships, and of course monitoring and evaluating the programme. And a year ago, as I said, there was the induction to the first cycle of the programme, and in March this year, meetings moved online till May, and we've just had the beginning of a new cycle with 6 mentors and 11 mentees this year. Here's what some of the mentees said about the experience of meeting in person, first of all. That the face-to-face sessions were essential, and that setting aside time to travel and meeting in a different place was helpful to think a bit more clearly about things. Now, meeting online, somebody was pleased that the sessions could continue and that moving online made that possible, but somebody else felt it was different moving to video calls, but that it actually worked quite well. As well as mentees, of course, mentors had to adjust, and we had mentor support meetings online, probably more than we would have had face to face, but we could do this, and we wanted to keep in touch and keep up with the changing picture. Some of of the things mentors told me were that online meetings had actually been more comfortable for at least one mentee, more focused, and that because people didn't have so much work on, they'd actually had a little more time to get involved in the mentoring process. On the other hand, people felt it had been a bit unfinished in terms of getting the experience they'd hoped for in mentoring face-to-face, but that online meetings were just a change of pace until things could get back to normal. So, to summarise the pros and cons, we haven't been able to meet face-to-face, but we can meet online, and there have been fewer logistical issues such as travelling to face-to-face meetings. Musicians, our mentees and our mentors have lost a lot of work, especially gigs, but some work has been possible online, such as teaching, and for some people it's created a bit of extra time for reflection. One thing we had to deal with was we were halfway through training our mentors with the Scottish Mentoring Network, but this had started in person, and because we were involved with the organisation and we knew each other, they had been a very helpful source of support, and we finished this online. Online mentoring was new to our programme and we hadn't planned it at all from the start, but we drew, as many of you did, I'm sure, on guidance from the SMA. And although we couldn't have mentor support meetings in person, we held these online and probably had more as a result of doing that. Finally, we've had a steep learning curve involving delivering the new programme while also adapting to online meetings, and so we've learned a lot fast, and we've gained experience of online mentoring early in delivering the programme, and it's allowed us to pair up mentors and mentees in the new cycle this year who are in far-flung parts of the country, as we'll see. Now, the map on the left here shows the distribution of our participants in TradMentor last year, and the colours show groupings of mentees and mentors who had to be fairly close together so that they could meet in person. But on the right, which is the map for this year, you can see it's quite a different picture, and mentees and mentors are scattered all over the place. So a mentor based in Edinburgh can mentor somebody in Orkney, and a mentor based in Inverness can mentor someone in the Central Belt, because we are mentoring online. So as we begin a new year of TradMentor online, people do very much want to stay connected and stay involved. And I wanted to finish with 2 comments from a mentee who took part in our recent induction session and said, "I loved feeling part of the bigger picture." And from one of our mentors who said to me recently, "This is one of the best things I have ever done." Thank you very much.
Thanks to both Susie and Joe for sharing those updates. I'm sure you'll agree it's been great to hear about the different approaches they've been taking to get through this period. I think as a movement and as a sector, we should all be really proud of that, of what everyone's been doing. I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Amanda. Many of you already know Amanda, our network development